always say that I am a client advocate, and I will, that is my job, is to advocate for the client, but it's not that they're always right. It's how are we driving impact, and are we living up to our brand, what we promise them?
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. We are stoked. Today, we have Randi Deckard with us, who is not only a friend of the show, but an all-about incredible go-to-market leader. She is currently the SVP of Client Engagement at Bessler. She is a boomerang employee, which we will talk about. She left for a little while, about a year, was the VP of Sales at IntelliCentrics. We'll dig super deep into that, talk a little bit about shiny object syndrome. But Randi, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see y'all again.
Thank you, Randi. Appreciate it. So before I ask my first question, define SVP of Client Engagement.
Sure. So I am basically on the ecosystem of the client. And so it is marketing, sales, customer success. In other companies, it would be equivalent to CRO. So anything to do with the customer and generating revenue, that falls under my responsibility.
Awesome. So then the question is going to change up a little bit, because I usually ask which one, if you had to go to a different part of the GTM life cycle, where would you go? My question is, where do you find your genius in marketing, sales, or CS?
So it's really, if I could be if I could be anything, I'd be an evangelist. Why? Because it's all about the customer. I love engaging with the customer, learning how they talk, what is valuable to them, what impacts them, and then bringing that back, having that closed loop feedback with the organization. And of course, in an ecosystem that happens, but if I could just do one thing, that would be my job, is going back and forth. This is what the customer finds impactful. How can we deliver on that? And that's what I would do.
Yeah, I love that. So probably more customer success, but bringing all those learnings back into the sales and marketing realm.
Yeah, because you can't have a good sales process if you don't, and a conversation, if you don't understand how you can drive impact, and how can you be a trusted advisor and challenge the status quo with a client, once again, if you don't understand the value and the impact that you can drive. Yeah, I think it's I really actually hate the word aligned, because it's really...
So does Dale.
Okay.
Considering it's the biggest thing on our website.
Well, it's really collaboration, right? And it's cross-functional. Yes, you don't want silos, but there is a difference. And I can't remember the podcast guest that you had on, but you guys did talk about the difference between alignment and collaboration. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I always talk about ecosystem, because this all falls under, the customer ecosystem. And there isn't anyone in the company who isn't in sales or isn't impacting the customer and what they do. And that's why I really like that collaboration, cross-functional connotation versus alignment. No offense to, anyone else out there who maybe thinks differently.
No, but I think what you're saying is important, right? Like we talk about we've all been in exec meetings or board meetings, and it's like, we have to get everyone to align on what the next steps are, and you all have to align, and like, okay, we're aligned. Now go screw yourself. I'm aligned. We're going to go do it. If we're not collaborating and doing it together, it doesn't matter how aligned we are.
Right.
So I agree with you 100%. You talk about evangelism, and I think that's something that's super popular right now. I was on a call this morning with a company who was like, "Oh, we'd love for you to do evangelism for us." Like, what does that mean? Oh, like some paid posts. And I'm different than a lot of folks out there. I won't do paid posts for products that we don't use at RR. I don't believe in it. I think it'll tarnish our brand. But tell me, when you say evangelism, what does that mean to you, like in 2 sentences or less? Because I think it means very different things to different people.
Absolutely. So I'm glad I get the opportunity to define it. So to me, it's about being a brand ambassador, but also a customer advocate. What drives impact? And then having that closed loop feedback and cross-functionally collaborating to drive what the company's goals are, right? But you can't do that in a silo or a vacuum. You have to talk to your customers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not enough people do that.
And that's one thing. I mean, we could have a whole episode just on that. You know, I've talked to leaders when I ask them, do you talk to customers? They're like, no. And I'm like, that is something that I make part of my daily. That's a non-negotiable. It's a daily, weekly. And I'm involved with customer advisory, input partners. You know, whenever I can talk to customers, I want the good, bad, and ugly, as I say it. But I have trust with my customers, so they will tell me. I love the fact that I'm the first call. Even if something goes wrong, I want that. I want that relationship with them.
And the reality is I've always learned more from the failures than I have from the successes.
Yep.
And you really get the incantation of what's happening with the customer. If they're like, this isn't working or that's not working. And then you may have to dig in a little bit more. Well, tell me what's not working in that process. And then you find out like what they think isn't working isn't really the problem. It's really something else. Yeah.
And that is, you know, communication and clarity is key, right? Always. And there's perceptions and things that are perceived or things that, you know, what, you know, has blown my mind away is when there's been an issue and in the conversation, just like you mentioned, Dale, oftentimes what they state the problem is, but when you drill down, I'm always like, I'm the person who drives everyone crazy. Why? Well, tell me more. Why? Tell me more. I mean, that's the scientist in me is like, I ask a lot of questions because I want to understand. And when you drill down, it's
well, it could also be the parent in you, right? It could also be the parent. It's like you have to ask the kid 5 times. Like they're always asking you why, and then like you got to do the same thing.
But and this is why I talk about, you know, my scientist background really helping me because we're always questioning and seeking to understand. And I think that's another thing is really seeking to understand. And you know, everyone talks about actively listening, but so many people really fail to seek to understand truly. And that is, you know, once again, that could be a whole other episode.
You're spot on because people say they listen, people say they hear you, but they don't. They hear what they want to hear, and because they're not trying to your point, seek to understand, really know where are you coming from? Why are you saying this? So you said something that I actually wrote down because it's super important to me. You said your customers trust you, that they're willing to give you the feedback because they trust you. I think if you were to ask a lot of sales professionals, be it AEs, managers, directors, VPs, C-levels, they tell you, oh, I have a great relationship with my customers. Of course they trust me, but they don't. And when you look at like challenger sale, there's a reason they say that relationship builders are like the worst type of salespeople because it's this one-way relationship, right? Like if you want me to do something, I do it, and you call me and ask me for all these favors. So I think we have this great relationship until I need you to do something, and I don't. Like Dale still hasn't sent me my Stanley Revenue Reimagined cup that he's drinking out of.
I haven't got one either.
But that's why I put it up here so that he would actually say something.
How do you build that trust with customers as a senior level leader? Because that's hard, right? You're not talking to them all day. Well, I mean, you are, but like, how do you do it?
Right. So I want to define what I think a trusted advisor is. A trusted advisor is someone, you know, that you know, I always say that I am a client advocate, and I will, you know, that is my job, is to advocate for the client. But it's not that they're always right. It's how are we driving impact, and are we living up to our brand, what we promise them, you know, whatever the SLA is, whatever the you know, whatever we've agreed to. And I am transparent, you know, whether it is something that is supposed to ship and hasn't. I will be the first person on the phone to say, I know that we talked about this, and I know that this is how this is going to impact your business. And I come with a solution. This is how we're going to deal with it until we can get to why. This is our commitment to you. So people trust me because I follow up. And even when things are not going right, I don't ignore the situation, and I am transparent. Like, there are times when absolutely things have gone wrong, right? But I'm the first one to pick up the phone and have that conversation, and not just like, yeah, I know we have a problem. I'm coming to them with solutions of how we can, manage this relationship and partnership. So, it is a blip in the overall scheme of things. And that's how I view a trusted advisor. And that is why I believe I do get those phone calls, where people are, have had issues that they're really upset with the organization. I call, and more often than not, we talked already a little bit about perceptions. When you actually get down to it, what they're calling me, what they're mad about often is not the thing. It's things that have built up. And we all know, because we all do this. It takes a lot, you always remember like the things that have gone wrong. And so they'll bring those up. And like, so it's my job in those conversations, like, okay, those things we fixed, we took care of, but what is the issue now? Right. And I don't know if anyone has had, I'm sure you can relate to that, right? People, whether it's you two, marriage, whatever, we always remember we're an elephant when it comes to the bad things, right? We never let that shit go. Oops, I just cursed.
No, we fucking curse all the time on this show. You're not hurting anyone's feelings. We have that little explicit tag in Apple Podcasts.
I don't think I've ever done that like on public podcasts yet, so that's why. Anyways,
all good.
One of the things you mentioned, Randy, was the customer's not always right? But in this world of like trying to satiate the customer all the time, we always think that the customer's right, or that's the perception that the company wants to put out, when like behind the scenes, they're kind of saying the customer's wrong. I actually have a philosophy that I think the customer wants some resistance. Like, I don't think they always want to be right. I think they just have a resistance around the way we're portraying it to them. So they may not be right, but how do we get them to a place of understanding this may be something better for you? And it's not only at the end when you have the customer, it could be in the beginning in the sales process. What I always try to tell sales reps or marketing, like, the customer needs to hear no before you get to contracting, because you're going to be the sales concierge for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and to me, it's managing expectations and how you frame things. I think are extremely important. Throughout the sales process, but also when as you manage the customer, acting with integrity, right? And I think a customer respects us more when they ask for something. I'm like, no, that is not on the roadmap, and here's why. It's our belief that in talking to XYZ customers, this isn't what it's a nice to have, but this is more important and this has more impact to the business. Do you agree? Get buy-in.
Yep.
So I always talk about discovery and buy-in constantly. That never goes away, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah, that's the other thing. People are like, oh, we're done with the sale, we're not going to do discovery.
No,
you got to keep going, right?
Yes, because things change.
Ends.
It never ends, whether it is, they have something, new priorities, they get new staff, they've implemented new technology, you name it. There's something always changing. And if you are not having those conversations, someone else will. And that is one thing, is like, it's our job in this partnership to stay on top of and find out continually what their priorities are and how we can continue the partnership and drive impact. But you have to continually have that discovery always, and managing expectations and getting agreement and buy-in, preferably with the champion.
Yes.
Yeah. People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part, gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results. Just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com. I love it. I think that when you look at those who do it well, not just in sales, in anything, that discovery never ends.
Yeah, that's where I go back to the why.
Yeah. I want to talk about shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
I'm one who's guilty about it, of it.
Here comes my failure.
I used to chase the shiny object and the golden dollar many, many times. And hindsight being 2020, I never should have, had I known then what I know now. You left Bessler for a while.
Yeah.
You went someplace else, and I'm sure there was good. This isn't a let's trash a company session, but let's talk about why you left. What were you looking for? Because you were looking for something and you came back. You're a boomerang.
Right, I am. So, at the time I was VP of sales, and the way the company was structured, I was like, okay, what's next for me? And I'm a person who does not like to stagnate. And I felt like there was, I couldn't really be mentored. And, what new products were coming, I needed more, right? I love my team. I love the organization. I thought we did a great job for our customers. So I met a very charismatic CEO who talked about a new business unit in tech, which I love to innovate. That's my science background. And I was super excited to be part of a team that was building. I love to build. And I was super excited about that. And I'll be honest, there was, some dollars and a carrot incentive. And well, maybe you want to be chief commercial officer. You're definitely, qualified. So there was a title, all the things. But there were some red flags, looking back, when I was digging in, how did you come up with the number for the new business unit? What are you thinking? And, how does the board think? And what does the runway look like? And it's because I heard what I wanted to hear, because I wanted to chase a C-suite title. I wanted more money. Let's be frank. And I wanted to build. But, even though that was the failure on my part, the lessons that I learned there, even though I was only there for a year, was number one, it validated I knew more than I thought I did. And I don't know if anyone has been in that situation before, but stepping out and actually working in a straight technology company, because Bessler services and software was really good. And, I remember in my, onboarding, talking with both product and our customer service support at the time, and no one could articulate to me end to end what our current offering actually did. And I was blown away. And I remember talking to the CEO about silos. And I was and this is a global company, right? I'm how is this even possible? And, as the year progressed, on the new business unit, there were challenges with shipping. And I think we've all been in organizations that had challenges with shipping. And there were a number of reasons that factored into that. But I knew it was time for me to exit when there was decisions being made saying, I don't want you in these conversations. I feel it's distracting to you. I'm no, I need to know where we're at, and I can only sell what's coming in a quarter. I can't continually sell the future. And because that's not just, it's my reputation, it's the company's reputation. And so that was, I think it was a really good lesson for me, because I got excited by all the carrots, and I full-heartedly admit that. And then when I was looking and decided, okay, this is it for me, I was talking to startups because I love to build. I've never burned a bridge. And so I had coffee with my former COO, and I told him what I was doing. He's like, don't. He goes, please come back. You can do anything, because you have this mindset that everything is figure outable. He goes, come back and run a service line. And that didn't last very long. Once again, fool me. Like within like 2 months, I was back over marketing, sales, and customer success. So I say fool me. There was some changes in the organization that made that possible. But the reason I came back was for a different challenge and because I was getting to build something. And in my role now, I still am very that cross-functional collaboration. What we're building, we have some new software coming out, and stepping out to IntelliCentrics really helped me. And I felt like I gave really good advice, especially on the product side, even though that's not my role. But so that was the good part of stepping out, is having that additional experience and bringing that back to the organization.
So with that experience that you had, what would you recommend for people that are like going through that process? Like, because it's hard, because one of the things I heard was like, you knew better, you kind of knew your inner voice, but you only heard what you wanted to hear. So how do you get away from like just hearing what you want to hear and really getting the facts down?
I should have listened to my own advice. And my own advice is, whenever, I'm going through something like this, or my kids, is like scorecard, like write it down, pros and cons, what are the flags, and, what are your concerns? And if I would have done that, I would have walked away, but I was ready to make a move and have a change. And I'll be honest, probably a little desperate for that at the time. I felt like I was stagnating. And so I jumped too quickly. And so it's really about being thoughtful, intentional, and scorecarding. And I know this, right? Because I coach on it, but hey, I'm human. I'm a work in progress, and I fully admit my failures. And that was definitely one of them.
We all are works
absolutely.
in progress.
Anyone who says they aren't is lying.
And so one of the things that you were talking about was the data element, so the scorecarding of it. And that's the same thing we talk about with founders all the time. They like to go by their gut. I believe this, I feel that. And they're trying to I think they're trying to tell themselves a story that you were kind of telling yourself. So we always talk about, what's the data? What's the conversion rates? What's the average deal size? Let's get the data elements together. But you can also go too far on the data side. Like, how do you balance the data and your gut when you're running the business?
Yeah. So I think it's being data driven, but I think the missing part and where the art comes in is the context, right? So you need to understand the ecosystem. You need to understand how your business works, how your customer operates, how you deliver, what are the gaps or biases or potential blind spots. And if you just look at the data, because as someone who's a scientist, I'll tell you, as a research scientist, and I'm not doing this anymore, but I can manipulate the data to tell the story that I want.
100%
Which is what I think you were
you
trying
can.
to get at. Right, exactly. So it's always it's always that context, and that's where, I think if you don't understand your ecosystem, you can get into trouble.
Yep.
And if you're not honest with yourself. And so it's the balance is data and context plus critical thinking. Does all of this come together to make sense? What am I missing? Have I looked at everything in a 360 view? Do I have any blind spots? What other gaps? And really approaching it intentionally, and looking around the data and other things and having those conversations. But also you have to understand your business. And that's why another thing that I think some leaders make this mistake. If you're a VP, VP of sales, I shouldn't say just, if you're a VP of sales and you have your blinders on and you're only focused on your role and what you do, I think that you miss some of that context, right? And that's why I love having either responsibility over the ecosystem. And even if I don't have responsibility, I'm going to learn it because it makes me better at what I do. And that's why I was really good when I was just VP of sales, is because I knew the business better than anyone. I knew what our customers And I also knew our business unit economics. Even though it wasn't my job, I knew that. And that's what made me good at my job, is because I did more and looked at the whole picture.
So important. I've always said that when you look at a good VP of sales, VP of marketing, whatever it is, it's the people who certainly are experts in their business units, but take the time to understand the broader part of the business. You cannot be a good VP of sales if you don't understand marketing, success, product, everything else. You can't be a great product leader if you don't understand the sales process and the sales flow. It all ties together. So I love that you brought that up. We are at that point that I feel Dale has something really important he wants to ask you, and I don't want to overstep on his timing. Otherwise, I'm going to get a nasty text saying, my turn, my turn, my turn. I kid. Sort of.
Randy, so we believe a lot in give the get at Revenue Reimagined, and you have an awesome gift. So let the audience know what you'd like to give.
Yeah, so I am giving away 5 annual memberships to Leslie Vanitez's Book Business Club. Yep, 5. And, I'll let Dale and Adam handle how that gets worked out. And then the other thing I'd like to offer is, some time. Anyone who is, struggling with the data in the ecosystem. I've advised, startups, of course, what I do in my day to day. I'm happy to have a conversation, because I think sometimes, we can get in our own heads, and it's good to compare and validate with someone. Sometimes having an outside perspective can be super helpful.
Love that. And that book club's amazing. You guys
It is. And there's a range of, so it's the relationships that I've made out of that are phenomenal. So
Adam doesn't
Dale,
read.
I was just going to say, Dale, I thought that you only read those things that have like the pictures in them, and that you're talking about a book club being phenomenal. I'm like, is it a comic book club, or I'm very confused. Very confused. But we can talk about that later.
Let's compare Audible lists and see how many books you've read.
So I don't Audible, but we could look at my Kindle and we could see how many books I read in a year.
See, I tend
to average close to 100. But I love to read. I don't like to listen, but I do like to read.
Yeah.
I feel like you dropped so much for revenue leaders, for founders, for AEs. Like there's so much relevance here on how to build, work in, understand go-to-market in your customer. And I'm super grateful that you took time to join us today. As we wind down a little bit, I'd love to throw a little bit of rapid fire your way.
Okay, let's bring it on.
The rules here are 10 words or less. Otherwise, a gong comes across and hits Dale in the head.
Okay. We don't want to hit Dale.
I mean, maybe we do. All right, here we go. What is the first app you check on your phone when you wake up in the morning?
Slack.
If you had a crystal ball, what's one revenue trend or strategy you predict will take center stage in the next 12 to 18 months?
Oh, it's got to be AI. I know we never touched on that because that's my rabbit hole. And I'm just gone. There goes Dale's head. More than 10 words. Oh my god. Sorry, Dale.
No. Go ahead. Let's go down the AI route for a minute. I know you love to geek out on it.
I do, and I've built custom bot for discovery, and I just feel if you are not using AI and finding ways to automate the mundane, and then also leverage it for efficiency, productivity, like doing research, oh my gosh, you're insane. And yes, AI. So anyways, I apologize that you got hit for that. I couldn't help myself.
I'm with Dale in person tomorrow. You have no idea how bad he's going to get hit for that.
You're with Randy tomorrow too in person.
I am, but I'm not going to hit Randy.
Well, I might hit back. I do Krav Maga, so I might hit back. So just fair warning.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
What is one emoji that you use in your work? What's the most used emoji in your work text?
Forehead slap.
I love it. Other than your phone, what's the one tech gadget you can't live without?
Oh my gosh. I guess my work computer or my computer. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Final one. Dream vacation destination.
Fiji.
Fiji.
Nice. Very nice.
Awesome.
I love it.
My husband promised me 25 years ago that's where we go. I'm still waiting.
It's a long time. It's a long time.
I tease him every year.
I have not been to Fiji.
Me
Definitely
neither.
on the list. Randy, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to chat. Where can people find you? How could they go get more of your awesome information, your content?
LinkedIn is the place to find me. It is.
I feel like
the place.
everyone says that. I need to stop asking this question.
Yeah,
We know where to find you.
I'm not on X. You know, I know some people are doing like the whole TikTok and Graham thing, but I'm LinkedIn.
I love it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you
Randy,
so
it was
much.
a pleasure. Thanks so much. Cheers.